Just so everyone knows, this was $50. With shipping, it was $70. Greetings, my name is Brian. Welcome to KillCo Whiskey Musings. We have a treat, a specialty, a rare and unique, very expensive whiskey. I don't want to go into all the details of this whiskey because it would take a very long time. So what I will do is show you the video that I watched that got me so interested in this rye whiskey. The very important part, the big thing, is that they made their own still that had basically gone extinct. One of the Leopold brothers liked to do a lot of research on whiskey things, and they discovered that before Prohibition, a very different type of still was being used, but no one made it anymore. And it looks like this here on the right, distilled in Colorado. One of my favorite things about this, of course, is first it's bottle and bond, and they show you the mash bill here on the left. Abruzzi rye, Leopold Brothers floor malt, fermentation 168 hours, aged 6 years, batch number 48. Right on the bottle it says a revival of a lost American tradition, which it is. Please let this be a screw cap. Oh, one of the very few times I'm glad it's not a cork. Oh, got a whiff. Careful, careful. I'm realizing now that it's open, this is one of those things where you go, not gonna do that. We begin with the color. It's a little light, but 6 years is a good age for any whiskey. And I don't often drink rye whiskey, or at least I say I don't. I have a number behind me here, but it's not my go-to. Never has been. This, however, is distinctly different from your regular rye whiskey. I got to try this when they were at the Bastards Ball 2-3 years ago. So that's part of Whiskey Tribe, to be clear. You have to look into that. It's another whole thing I don't feel like explaining. On to the nose. It's a bit like potpourri. It's very floral. There is something in there I don't quite like. I'm thinking of it as a tin note. Maybe a slight mint. I just thought of cedar wood. Why? Alright, I thought of a rock from a stream specifically. And now, of course, I just want to arch my eyebrow. What a very odd nose. There's never been a rye that I've had that goes this way. Ever. Ever. There's something sweet in there too, but it's kind of buried under that potpourri. I do remember being fascinated by this nose when I got to try it. It was still in a very different setting. It was very loud and I couldn't really focus on it much, but I remember just being like, what is this? And now to the palate. Oh, it does things, man. It's sparkly. And it unfurls, which is very nice. Ooh. Goes on for a while, too. That was a very tiny sip. I got acorns and baking spices. Weirdly enough, baking spices more for a bread. I'm trying to figure out, like, I want to say gingerbread, but not like the cookies, like a loaf. You made a loaf of gingerbread. It's got that airiness to it. It sticks around. I got a bit of a tobacco note at the end. First sip is always weird. I used to actually try not to think about it. Why? Why? It's already happening. I'm going to think about it. But the real fun comes in the second sip, where we hold it on the palate and see what happens next. A little bit dry. Whoa. It does something. It brings that it brings that potpourri floral note on the palate. And a lot of black pepper spice. Slow dry. Like it gets a little dry and then it starts to fade out. There's that weird tobacco note. Like actual tobacco, not sweet tobacco, just freaking tobacco. And there's something a bit green in the finish. It made me think of the stem of a dandelion. And a lot of these are fun because they don't make sense. I'm going back in on this and I'm going to hold my palate for much longer. It doesn't drink like the percentage, which is 50%. So it's much easier to hold in the palate than I expected. One more time. Black pepper spice, which I expect from rye. A little candy sweet, not quite vanilla. What is that? The slow dry. It's not as intense as it was on the second sip. There's a little bit of that tobacco. The floral notes tamped down quite a bit now. That potpourri is almost gone. And now it's getting a bit of an earthy density to it near the finish, which I imagine just fades into that tobacco feeling I had earlier. That dries out. I'm just thinking about this in like an old fashioned. This would be amazing. This is such a different experience from a regular rye. And knowing it's gone through this whole process, like this is what they used to drink before Prohibition. It's wild. It's a whole different, It's a completely different animal, and I can see people actually sitting down and enjoying this. I almost want to say more than the rye we make today, but it's also to keep in mind that it was a whole different type of strain of rye that we're using back then. And now we're using something different because it's easier to grow. What a lovely little dram. I'm so happy to have this in my collection. I've wanted it for years now, just as something to put in a lineup of a variety of different ryes and have people just be completely blown away on how unique this one is compared to everything else we've been exposed to in our own generation. Going back in time in a way, and that's a rare experience. There you have, folks. As always, live long and prosper. Don't forget to be awesome, and I will see you out there. Special thanks to my YouTube members and patrons for supporting the channel. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.